We are really excited to have all of you guys on board and listening to this presentation because it's going to be very instrumental in making decisions for you. I would like to just talk about who I am. My name is Peter Harrison, and I'm really responsible for the broader vision of where Palisadoes Foundation is going to go. And I work with the various types of mentors who act as superheroes in the whole organization. And they're the ones that you should be keeping in contact with. So if you have questions about your proposals or ideas, talk to the mentors. And I'm going to provide you with information as to how to get to them and even some more information that would be very useful for you. The Palisadoes Foundation is a nonprofit organization, and it was created by Jamaicans like myself to try and see how we could promote technology development on the island. And we started with a program called the Calico Challenge, which was based on the Google Summer of Code. And during the pandemic, we got through to the Google Summer of Code. And this has been a culmination of efforts from many people around the world. It's not just Jamaicans. We have people who have participated from the United States, from India and other countries, Barbados as well. And so we're all trying to see how we can get an opportunity to provide volunteer services to people in and around the world to make sure that they have an opportunity to succeed. And we have a software education focus. All the mentors are IT professionals, and they have very busy day jobs. And the methodologies that I'm going to suggest about getting in contact with them really revolve around that very, very heavy schedule. The Calico Challenge had local corporate sponsors, but with the Google Summer of Code, Google is the overall sponsor. I want to talk about YouTube. If you have any questions about the Palisadoes Foundation, about the repositories, about the various types of policies, procedures, anything like that, go to YouTube. And the best place to go as a starting developer is the Getting Started Developers playlist. There are 10 to 12 videos there. It talks about our code of conduct, which I suggest that all of you take a look at. It talks about how we handle issues, how we handle pull requests, the various applications like Tallower, how to install them how to install it in general. All those things are all handled by the videos on YouTube. This year we have two different type of applications. The first one I want to talk about is Tallower. It's a community organization-based piece of software, and it is really targeted towards clubs, neighborhood groups, volunteer organizations, nonprofits, and small religious institutions. And that's why we have things like the social media features like chat, why we have a mobile app, why we have a web app that people can use. That's the reason why we have such detailed information on events, why we also want to have volunteer management in there, why we have fundraising, all of these things. It's all around community organizations that want to do outreach to the people in and around their neighborhoods. Then we have a second option, which is SwitchMap. And this product is something that handles network topology, and it works very well for small organizations. And where we want to go is to try and make it work for very large organizations. And the software keeps track of devices on the network, the VLANs on the network, the IP addresses on the network. And at the moment, every pole of all the network devices gets tracked in a time series database. And so with that information, you can now handle visualizations. Now, that could be visualizations of these particular types of characteristics, or we could add new characteristics that we want to visualize on a network. And I'm sure that if you do research into network types of tools like this, you'll have some ideas. And then also, because it does time series or timed timestamps of the network, there may be opportunities in the realm of cybersecurity. So keep those things in mind when you're thinking about your project ideas. If you have information about Talent or want information about Talent, go to docs.talent.io. Over the last year, we have made significant strides in the quality of docs.talent.io. The installation guides are there, troubleshooting guides are there, information about all the various functions, classes are there also through automated systems. And we really pride ourselves in the way that we have made that develop over the years. The documentation on docs.talent.io is embedded in the code. So every one of the repositories that I'm going to be talking about has a /docs directory. And in there, you can put markdown specific to any new feature or any new modifications that you want to have. And that is where it is. It'll be automatically deployed to the website after the merging of your pull request. Similarly, we have another website, docs.switchmapng.io, with information related to SwitchMap. And if you have any questions, go there. If you want to make modifications or updates, there's also a docs directory in which you can do it. The docs directory is managed through software called Docusaurus. It is well documented online. It's a product that comes out of Facebook, and it appears as if they use it internally within their organization. For information about GSoC and the Palisadoes Foundation, go to palisadoes.org/GSoC. If you want to find information, is there. So you can keep track of that and monitor it just for your own information purposes. If you want to get in contact with the mentors reliably, go to mentors@palisadoes.org. I remind mentors all the time to monitor the Slack channels and keep track on Slack. But if you have any doubts or you have any difficulties, just send an email to mentors@palisadoes.org and you should be able to get some response. There are other mailing lists that you can take a look at. I think there's draft submissions at palisadoes.org if you want mentors to take a look at your proposals. Now, if you're going to be sending proposals, I suggest that you start getting interactions with the mentors earlier rather than later. And I'll explain to you why in some of the statistics that are related to the Palisadoes Foundation, and you will get an understanding as to why I strongly suggest that you get in contact with the mentors early, that you maintain a relationship with the mentors earlier rather than later. I want to talk about a branching strategy. We're using the develop-Postgres branch for Talent. And the reason for this is because we normally have develop as the branch for the software. But what has happened is that one of the hybrid GSoC projects for 2024 proposed the changing of the backend database from MongoDB to Postgres. And the reason for this was because it was getting out of hand, where we were actually writing our own foreign key tracking systems. And we just realized that an RDBMS would be a better approach for us to use. And because of that, we took this very risky approach to go full speed ahead with migrating from MongoDB to Postgres. And over the last 2 months, we have been trying as much as possible to make the screens of both the mobile app and the various web apps work with the Postgres backend. because we feel that this is going to be a real benefit for us. Now, we have two demonstration websites related to Tallower. The first one is demo.tallower.io, and that site runs the develop branch of Tallower. And then we have test.tallower.io, and that runs the develop-Postgres version. The reason why we have these sites is so that we can now start showing people what Tallower can do. We can tell them, go and take a look. You, as a developer, can point your application, your front end, to these websites and get information that is relevant to the work that you're going to be doing. So you can use these sites as a proof of concept. For many, many years, people have asked us, where is the API in the cloud? Well, finally, it is there. And both of these sites pull the latest version of the two of the branches of Tallower API and Tallower admin every night and reload a sample database. And so therefore the data is always fresh. And of course, if things break in the respective apps, the sites are going to break. So they're a little unstable, but for the most part, they work. Branching strategy for SwitchMap is that we're going to be using develop. And this is the information that we have on our YouTube channels. The aim is that in future, in the next few months, we'll be able to go back to the develop branch for Tallower. We'll merge all the changes from Tallower, this Postgres branch into develop, and then we'll be able to have a unified system, which is a little less confusing. So it's really important to make sure that you're working with Postgres. And one of the ways in which we've tried to develop a methodology to really make it very clear that we are going with Postgres is that many of the issues that we have in the various repositories start with the phrase no Mongo, because we don't want to do MongoDB anymore. And that is the thing that we use to keep track of it, to make it infinitely clear. So if you really want to know the information about the various branches, you can switch the branches at the top of the screen in the web UI of the repository, change it from develop to whatever one that you want. And if you have any interest or information or wanting to find out more about the various policies that we have, you can go to the root directory and see the code of conduct documentation, how to contribute to the repositories, how to handle installation, our issue guidelines in general, the license that we are using, and the pull request guidelines, etc. All of that information is there for you to take a look at and have a richer experience with the repositories. Now, I want to talk about what we need. We're looking for the best students globally. And when you think about that, many people think about just academic excellence, and that is not always the case. I'm going to explain why. Right? The best how. We want good ideas. And so something that is technically excellent, but may not necessarily be usable, or may have characteristics that are not suitable for the end user, or the end user may not necessarily want to use it that way. Well, somebody who would be slightly less technically excellent may succeed. So please keep that in mind. We want also for people to have meaningful pull requests. We want them to have light supervision. So when you're talking to your mentors and you're saying, should I do this or should I do that? What we're really looking for is, I have looked at this, I have looked at that, and I am going to go with this for these particular reasons, right? So therefore, it's self-supervised. Take the initiative. Don't ask all the time, should I do this or should I do that? And we have to be very careful about this because we have tools now that are very useful in asking questions. AI, for example, right? What should I do for this particular technological situation? AI will provide you with these things. You could do this or you could do that. Sending an AI response to a mentor and asking which one should I do is only showing that you know how to use AI. AI only gives you, in this particular example, AI gives you the options. It doesn't give you the solution for the particular situation that you find yourself in. And that is where the value is going to be. We want people who are reliable. We want people who also understand the framework of the various repositories. The code needs to be stable and testable. If you're going to be recommending new packages, we strongly recommend that you suggest packages that are backed by companies, not necessarily by individuals. Because if the individual loses interest in the package, then the package doesn't get updated anymore. And if you're going to have a long-term solution to the various products that we are hoping to have available to people through our open source work, then it needs to be manageable, it needs to be sustainable, it needs all of these various things. The code needs to be good in terms of readability. The documentation needs to be excellent. The documentation needs to be excellent. The reason for this is because people often forget about the importance of it. We are a nonprofit organization. The various repositories that we have are open source. We do not have a help desk. And therefore, the documentation that we have needs to be very, very clear about what we do, how we do it, and why. That's the reason, for example, with the new Tallow API using Postgres, and we have a video about the installation, we also have text that talks about what to do and why, because there are errors in the video. Things change over time. Like for example, the loading of the sample database, the commands for that change over time depending upon your needs. And therefore, if you follow the video exactly, you may find yourself being lost. Use the video as a guideline. Use the written text as what you really want to be following. Make sure that you meet your deadlines and make sure that you have a professional attitude. As much as possible, if you read the code of conduct, if you listen to the videos that we have, we want everybody to have a chance. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to excel and shine. And so sometimes we may allow people to struggle a little bit because we all struggled a little bit in our careers. And therefore, be patient in some of these situations, but eventually, if someone is struggling, we're going to ask them, find ways of getting assistance. We start asking people to jump in, and you've probably seen this on many, many occasions in the past. There are many strategies for success, and I'm going to talk about these one by one. Visit the GitHub projects, visit the project websites, fork the repos, review issues, contact mentors, get clarifications, build rapport, work on features, watch our YouTube videos, and of course, you won't be selected if you don't apply. I'm going to talk about statistics. So these are statistics from 2023. The statistics from last year are very, very similar. So I didn't go through the statistics from last year. In 2023, we had about 60 applicants. We had more applicants than Postgres in 2023. Maybe it is because of the way that we handle ourselves. Maybe people thought they had better chances. I don't know. But we had 60. We had a short list of about a quarter of those people. And we had about 8 slots. Thank you, Norman. We had 72 in 2024. So that really goes to show about the value of the rules and policies that we have, trying to get everybody to have an opportunity. So we had about 8 people as selected last year and this year. So I think this will be very useful. Now, we had 60 people. If you wait to the last minute to send your proposal to get some response, our mentors now have to deal with 60 proposals, each proposal being anywhere between 10 to 40 pages. At the last minute, when they have their regular work to do, don't be surprised if you wait to that very, very end to not get a response. Make sure you have that rapport, make sure you're talking with the mentors, make sure you get in contact with them on Slack, make sure you use the email that I just mentioned, because that's going to be very important. Do not wait to the very, very end. Right. So now I'm going to hand things over to Noman. Noman, if you can come off mute. 25, where we have 8 to 9 project ideas, and he's going to be talking about them one by one. So the first set that he's going to talk about are related to Tallow and the community ideas that we have. Noman?
Yep. Hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So hello everyone, and I am a Flutter developer initially, and I am associated with Palisadoes since last 4 years. I did my GSoC in 22 as a student, and since then I'm a mentor and like managing stuff. I attended the event, the Mentor Summit last year, met with Peter in person, and it was great. So I'll be talking about the ideas we have for 2025. Starting with the first one, the Talava admin plugins. So we already had plugins before, but it's not that great. So we want to rebuild it, and we just want to remove the old one, and we want to integrate the whole new plugin system. And it will be something like VS Code extension, Chrome browser extension, or something like that. You guys have to think how you are going to approach it. I'll just explain what we are like what are the expected outcomes for it. So it should support multiple external contributors to the Talava code base, like building a plugin separately sort of thing. Operate similar to WordPress plugin, enable flexibility and modular integration, like VS Code plugin works or a Chrome extension works. On top of it, we want a plugin in such that we can use that plugin to integrate a payment system like PayPal, Razorpay, Stripe, or something like that, so that an organization can enable the plugin and start taking payments to the specific organization like donation or something. Another plugin which we need is like AI plugins. So AI plugins we need like AI spam filtering plugins or the fact checking plugins for comments. Like just go through the web and scan if this is a false information or not. And if it's a false, mark it as spam or something like that. These are the two AI plugins, and there are more plugins mentioned on the idea list. You can go through it one by one to understand better. If you still have doubts, you can ping any of the mentors of those it is the same and me tool, or you can get in contact with any mentor to get a better understanding of it. Moving to the next one, which is improved usability and hardening of Talava Mobile. So in the Talava mobile app project, we have a lot of dead code and it requires a lot of code improvements in terms of performance, reusability, and security. For that, we want you to like strengthen the code security wise. File upload is broken on that. We need to fix the file upload and make it stable and performant. Also, we earlier had an encryption thing, so it is also not like at best optimization. We want you to optimize that as well. On top of it, we want a notification system for the mobile app. We don't want Firebase cloud messaging. We want to build our own pack notification system. So it will be a in-app notification, not a like mobile notification sort of thing. Apart from that, we need one more feature in this project, that is guest invitation. So currently you need to add a member, then you can invite, they'll register to an event like that. So we need a feature to invite a guest to event through the app directly. Like they don't have to be a or member of organization to join the event. They can directly join the event. On top of it, we want, like currently our app only contains text. We want to make it more fun, and we want you to add emojis, animations, and make it like good looking. Moving to the next one, the notification improvement. This is a big project. So in this, we want you to think of a way in which we can have a notification system for all like the Lava admin, the Lava web, and the mobile app. So on the admin can create notifications, and for that you need to have notification templates like uh, warning sort of notification success announcement, basic notification templates, or a custom notification which admin can send. And you have to think of a way how you are going to catch the notifications in the mobile app and the web, how we are going to show it. So like I'll call it a notification engine sort of project. You have to build the whole engine. In this project, we also want to enhance few features like, as I mentioned, like event guest invitation, which we had in mobile app. So in this project, we will be handling on the admin side. Chat system needs a bit refactoring. That is included in this as well. And maximize the code reusability. That's basic for all of the projects. So you can get in touch with Disha and Risha for this project. Moving to the next one, the Talava accessibility for blind users. So our target audience is like not tech savvy audience, so we want to make it as easy to use the app. So in this project, we want to have few basic features like converting voice message to text using Google Text-to-Speech APIs, display transcription below voice messages, like if there is a voice message, you have to show a description sort of thing. Also, you have to implement optional language detection for user preferred language transcription. Like for regional languages, basic regional language, you don't have to support all of them. Also, we need text to speech for read like transcribe text for image text, or like suppose a user click on a chat. So you have it should speak out the message for the user. Screen reading integration. So Android also supports talkbacks and voiceover for iOS. You have to enable that. Like if we need to do any customization in the app to make it accessible to these accessibility features of Android and iOS both. There you have to use AI a bit in this for voice activated commands like uh, if a user says like create an event for me, go to this page, navigate to this, like that. So it should be like the app should be usable just by voice. Also, like media playbacks, I added that. For this project, you can get in touch with me or Shekhar. Moving to the next one, and the last one for Talava is Talava Enhanced Testing. In this project, we want to automate our unit testing a bit. Currently, we are using CodeRabbit to review the PRs. Similar to that, we want something to generate the unit test using AI. Memory management improvements, like you can utilize the tools like Keploy or Tramline to optimize memory usage. You can use Tramlines for Android and iOS builds and testing. You have to enhance the end-to-end testing. So this project is all around testing and improving it using AI. That's These are the five we have for Talava. Moving to the next, like the switch map. For switch map, we have two projects. One is for the web features, which will be mostly focused on the front end. In this, you have to like think of a way how we are going to show the UI of the topology. Like, it's mostly focused on the front end part. For this, you can get in touch with Ashima, and we have a very detailed description about this project on the idea list. You can go through that as well. So, as Peter has explained the project already, I'll not go in detail. Also, the documentation for this is like very high priority because this is a complex thing. If we don't have a great documentation, it will confuse users. You have to have 100% code coverage in each of the projects. So the next project is the scalability. So in this you will be mostly working on the API side of this project and collaborating with the first project. Uh, so you have to optimize and like create a whole lot of APIs, asynchronous polling, real-time data updates by zone. Also, you have to like handle multiple time zones here, historical data usages, additional data collection, and a lot more. Like we have it detailed on the idea list. You can go through it. For this project, you can get in touch with Dominic, so he'll guide you more. Uh, Apart from it, we also have a hybrid idea. So we are not restricting you to these specific 7, 8 ideas. You can think of your own idea, go through the project, switch map, Talava, both the projects, and you can like come up with any idea. Like last year, we had others came up with the idea of moving the database to Postgres. It was a hybrid idea, and we liked it, and he got selected. Also, we earlier we had a idea of making the app usable when there is no internet. So if you guys can come up with a great idea, must submit a proposal for the hybrid idea because this is something very unique and like it's user on the perspective of user, like how you guys are going to think. And I would suggest everyone to must submit one proposal for a hybrid idea. I think I covered all, and Dominic will explain further. Hi, Dominic.
Hi, Norman. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad.
So Dominic will explain you the selection process and further. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so the selection process is actually not that too dissimilar for other GSoC projects. That being, GSoC has been pretty much more or less somewhat standardized over the years. So even if you were to say Google what a GSoC template would look like, you do find it somewhat differing from org to org, but more or less the things that we would look for would be similar to other types of orgs. That being said, an application template is probably the most important. So this application template should give us a wide and somewhat deep view of what you intend to cover during the GSoC period. It should clearly explain the problems that you're going to solve and how you're going to solve them. And you should convince us that you are capable of solving said problems. That being said, you also should prove that you are capable of solving these problems by having pull requests being merged during this application period, such that we can, have a lot of faith that you'll be able to complete the project and say with like a lot of confidence and certainty that we did indeed choose you as the proper candidate for this given task. As I mentioned before as well, you need good communication skills. That this has to be reflected within the template, but also during our interactions. So if you send an email to mentors@palisadoes.org, if you message us in Slack or any other means, those all give us cues as to what your communication is like and how well we would be able to communicate during the application period, the bonding period, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, these more or less kind of just tie into one another. So, proposal quality is more or less just a kind of sum total of all these individual. It's kind of it's in the middle, but it's more or less the sum total of all these individual traits. So if you have a high quality proposal is one that links to meaningful PRs that have been merged or are capable of being merged quite easily, communicates the problem effectively, communicates how you're going to develop new features, creates a clear roadmap for the mentors to kind of guide you towards completing said feature, provides a novel and innovative feature that's going to be a useful addition to our organization at the end of the program, and it shows that you have very good mastery of technical prowess in that particular field or in that particular area that you want to work in. So, as I said, that these kind of tie into each other. Mentor interaction, we really kind of look for communication skills. Not just communication in terms of like how clear you are, but are you someone who like understands things on like an interpersonal and interpersonal level? Meaning, it's not just about how well you speak or write, but can you also work well with others? Can you be a team player? Can you, take ownership of different features, take ownership of different things, but also be considerate and empathetic to members of the community? And yeah, I'd say that pretty much kind of sums up the selection process for what we expect.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to open up for questions, but I want to just add a few things to what Dominic said. We look for meaningful PRs. When we're doing the selection process, we really are looking for people who have an understanding of the code base and have had a meaningful impact on the code base. It's a question of quality, not necessarily quantity. I'll give you an example of this. Adash, who did the API rewrite, during his application process, I believe he may have made 2 or 3 pull requests, and he rewrote the entire backend. We've had people who have done similar few numbers of PRs, have made selection processes because we want to sometimes give people an opportunity to shine. So make sure that your application is very well researched, information there, and that the quality of your pull requests is excellent. And so that's going to be an important factor as well. All right. I think we can open up the floor for questions. Does anybody have any questions here? Right, so the first question is, can we submit proposals for multiple products for Palisadoes, for example, one for hybrid and another for any given problem? Yes, that has been done many times in the past. Any other questions? Okay, Aman, please go ahead.
Yes, so am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So I want to ask how much descriptive a proposal should we give the code template also ki how we will going to code or schematic diagrams and text.
It's always best to have a solution or a presentation that clearly explains what you want to do. So if you have schematics to add to the context of the text, then that's something that would be usable. Please use your initiative in deciding what are the best ways to convey your idea and the way that you want to implement it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I would like to
Okay.
one more point. So
Yes, go ahead.
if it requires to add semantics diagrams, then only you have to add. You don't have to like force it out.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Arpit, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to add to Aman's question that if we on that for a few days, can I like add up on that before the GSoC starts to like showcase that my idea and your idea does not clash and they are merging well, like a framework.
So are you saying that if somebody, please explain that again, because it sounded as if there may have been overlapping projects. I'm not sure whether that is what you wanted to say. Is that
Like
what
to
you
be
said?
specific, I am working with the Talva admin for a few months, so I am liking the notification idea that I also feel as a problem. So I was also, if I update that from my local end and then show a little demonstration before the giving my application, will that be all right?
Oh, absolutely. If you want to give it a try, yes. Google recommends that you don't actually start coding your applications beforehand. We've had people that have tried it. It's impossible not to enforce, but please remember that that is not a guarantee of being selected, but it does help with the evaluation. I would suggest that you really take time to update the application in the project document. Spend a little more time on that because that helps us to get a true idea. Yes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and maybe doing some of these things, do other things. But if you're following the Google guidelines, make your application shine in whichever way you feel best. But the application itself, the document, is what we're going to be going with as more than other things. All right.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right. Priyansh, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a question. If I'm submitting a proposal for, let's say, switch map, will my contributions in admin and API be taken into consideration, or will we just be focusing on switch map contributions for switch map proposal and so on?
If it's related to the web front end, and you can show some innovations there, yes, that would definitely help because the switch map front end at the moment is really just static, for the most part, static HTML, and there may be some opportunities for improvements there. So you could use that as a reference. On the API side, on the backend side, there really is no parallel. So therefore, it may not be as valid. But if you want to showcase some of your front end skills, you could potentially do that. Rewriting the web front end at this moment for SwitchMap is not really viable. It's written entirely in Python, and it's also very highly integrated with the backend. And so, yes, in that particular case, you can consider doing that as well. The other mentors may have some right, opinions on that, but I think that would be a summary of what you'd be saying anyway.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other questions? What I would suggest, so the question is, so for connecting with respective mentors, should we DM or mail them directly or reach out to the respective channel? I would suggest that you do all three. Um, Try as much as possible to get in contact with them. The mentor's email is probably going to be the one of the more effective ways because it'll be in their inbox. Mentors try to be on Slack.
Palisadoes.org. That basically covers everyone.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that mailing list, all the mentors are on that list. So it doesn't go to just one person. It goes to all 16. Okay. Anushka, please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I think this has been answered, but I just wanted to clear it up. So I wanted to ask, how can we best align our proposals with the organization's needs and expectations? Like, how do we structure our proposal for the best chances of acceptance?
Well, if it's for that's a good question. Like Dominic said, the template is going to be an important part of the process, because the template page that we have just explains the types of things that we want to achieve. Now, if you're talking about how is it going to be best for the organization, it's not so much for Palisadoes as an organization, it is for the benefit of the end user who's going to be using it. Please take in consideration the stakeholder analysis. Who's going to be using this? And so therefore, if it's going to be a web front end, think about whether it's going to be usable and used by the stakeholder that's going to be interacting with that UI. On the back end, if you're making modifications or changes, think about things that are related to the stakeholders in that particular area. Those are going to be people like the DevOps teams, the systems administrators, people that are more concerned about um, troubleshooting logs and going to be wanting to understand that the packages and the product is very, very easily deployable, that the performance is better, and those sorts of things. And focus on the various stakeholders. If you make a proposal and you're not thinking about the stakeholders, then it's just an idea. It's a proposal. It's a concept. Because if they don't use it, it's just an educational exercise. And educational exercise much better rewards if people are actually short terms. If we had a longer time frame in which people would want to experiment and not work, that would be a different situation. We have a relatively short time frame, and as much as possible, think about the stakeholders. It's very important in the evaluation of what we're trying to do. Does that answer your question? All right. All right, so we have another question. Aman, before I go to you, I'm going to is there any message because are working full time and are busy usually? Use your discretion on this. Once again, comprehensive, those things would be taken into consideration. And especially if you're doing something like a hybrid project in which the issues and the pull requests have nothing to do with what you're thinking about. The only way that we're going to be able to evaluate whether what you're talking about is valid is through that methodology. So that's going to be a very important factor, right? When we're doing the evaluations, the reason why we look at pull requests and the merged pull request in particular is because we want to make sure that you as the participant will be able to succeed. If you have been doing a lot of pull requests that are just cancelled, I'm not saying that if you cancel a pull request, that is a bad thing. What I'm saying is that if there's a consistency in that process, especially going closer and closer to the deadlines, because everybody makes mistakes, right? They do things, they say, oops, I made a mistake, I'm going to do this and do that. But if this is something that goes on right through, then we're going to take that as a warning sign. So keep those sorts of things in mind as well. We really want people to succeed. And so therefore, we try to take a look at the types of pull requests that people have made and then figure out whether those types of pull requests match the capacity for the person to actually achieve the goals of their proposal. We want you to succeed, because if you don't succeed, the software doesn't get better. And that's going to be an important factor in the evaluations of what we're trying to do. Does that answer your question?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Right. And Norman has mentioned that you can text anytime and wait for at least 8 to 10 hours for the mentors. Once again, just use your discretion and figure it out. And that's a good guideline. All right. Vanshika, please go ahead.
Yes, hello everyone. So my question is that how do we mention the contributions which we made while we were not assigned the issue? Like there were certain issues I worked on that was not assigned to me. So how can I mention them in my final application?
That's
Because
a
I wasn't assigned.
That's a very good question. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Many of you have got in contact with me relating to improvements of the application in various ways, in improvements in the deployment. Mention them in your application. For example, we now have I think it's a security improvements document in which I think easily 20 people have participated with various types of updates and improvements. Mention that that document has listed issues related to various types of ideas. Most of the major contributors in that document have been already assigned issues, but just keep that information in mind when you're working on it. Provide that information, and that'll provide validation. So I want to talk about my role in the evaluation and selection of persons for the Google Summer of Code. I do not select people. This is my role. My role is to get all the mentors together and ask them, who are the people that are the ones that you are thinking about working with. They discuss things, they talk about the various proposals, people who are on the short list, and then they say, these are the two people, or they may say, this is a particular person. My input is solely whether the person seems like a good fit. And so therefore, I will make commentary on, yes, that person has made some meaningful pull requests. Yes, that person has been an active and positive contributor to the organization in the Slack channels. And that's all. I don't say yes or no. It's more just for validation to make sure that a person who is selected can succeed. So that's one of the first things. Another thing I want to talk about related to the GSoC period is that we recommend, or what we'll do for all the projects is that we will go for, I think it's the maximum time, which I think it's 20 weeks. It may be a little more, maybe 22. But we go for the maximum time for the duration of the project. And the reason for that is not because we want you to do more than 350 hours. We recognize over the years that people have exams, people take vacations, people, they are looking for jobs. They're going through all these various types of things in their lives. There may be festivals that they're going to. They want to have time with their family. All of these things happen. And so therefore, we extend it over a period of time to ensure that you have success. We don't want you to do 700 hours of work because we're doubling the time. We want you to succeed. So we originally started out stating that we wanted, I think it was 12 weeks. And what we discovered is that because of exams, people stop really contributing for maybe a week or two before the exam. And if you have two sets of exams over a 12-week period, then we find that we get only 8 weeks out of the person instead of 12. And based on that experience, we go with the longer time frame. Any other questions? Okay, so Manish Biswal, will mentors monitor Slack channel for evaluation processes or purposes? Yes, I make sure that the mentors are reminded to go on the Slack channels. If you have difficulties in getting in contact with the mentors, just get in contact with me and I'll make sure to ping them directly. But please use the Slack channels, but also use mentors@palisadoes.org. The mentor will respond. You'll now have an email address and you'll be able to contact them directly. So that is another option as well. Use all the channels that we've mentioned before to get in contact with people. Any other questions? Hugo, please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So, if a contributor has other open source contributions outside of Palisadoes Foundation, would they be taken into consideration while reviewing the proposal?
Yeah, sure. Anything that can, once again, we want to make sure that in your proposal, you have a great likelihood for success. And anything that you can show that has shown that you can have success would be appreciated. But of course, we're going to be skewed towards the contributions within our code base. That would be just more like the cherry on top. Okay. Do you have any other questions related to that? Does that answer your question?
Got it. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so we have another question from Anushka. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so one more question. Like, are there any common mistakes that we should, as applicants, avoid?
Well, the first one is not submitting an application, but maybe the mentors will have some information about that. Dominic, Norman, do you have any?
Maybe I am looking forward to take that. So, hi Anushka. Basically, there are a couple of mistakes which I feel um, anyone who's contributing can avoid. Like from starting, I would suggest as soon as you get comfortable with the code base and choose your project and start contributing is the first thing. I don't think that you have to wait for very long enough to start your proposal. Get your proposal, like get started with the proposal review with mentors as soon as possible. Don't rush it in the end because usually in the end all the mentors are bombarded with these proposals, and then I feel it's very overwhelming for a mentor as well to go through these many proposals. As soon as you reach them, as detailed reviews you can usually fetch from them, and just contribute. Don't stick on to a single project. Contribute in a way so that you can target a couple of projects from a single repository, and just yeah, I think that's more overall.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ashima.
Yeah. Following what Ashima said, it's very easy to read someone's proposal if they've been communicating constantly throughout this period. So if I know someone has been, contributing code and creating pull requests and asking questions in Slack and sending emails and things so on and so forth, it's very easy to when they're sending a proposal to see that they understand what they did, like what they're doing, and the mentor has probably seen many of the things that they mentioned in their proposal at some point already and verified that this is indeed a useful contribution to our organization and everything. Another thing I would say that's useful is to focus more on just kind of understanding the landscape of things. So what I mean by this is that when you create ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't just like try to create as many pull requests as possible, or things such as that. Be a part of the community. So ask questions in the Slack, ask a mentor, things such as that, but don't use them as a crutch per se. Try to figure out things on yourself, and when you realize that you're stuck or you don't really understand why something is done a certain way, nothing's wrong with asking in the channel, but just don't ask before you've actually put in the work to try to understand yourself.
I want to build upon what
Um,
Dominic said before I get on to the next question. The like I mentioned in the first part of the presentation, um, people sometimes use AI and they generate these various types of questions, and they'll ask the question, should I do this or should I do that? And what we really want is people to take the initiative to make a suggested approach and then try to implement that approach because they understand the various types of issues. Asking people whether they should do this or that is not it works in an academic scenario where you're trying to learn. So you ask your professor, professor, should I do this or should I do that? And the professor will say, well, you can do this, you can do that, and they will give you the pros and cons. When you're now going to find yourself propelled into the work world, you're going to have to be able to defend your decision, and you'll be now need to be able to say that these are the various options, and based on the scenario, this is the way that we want to go. That's going to be the important factor. The think about it from the perspective of the mentor. If everybody comes in and asks, should I do this or that, they now have to be evaluating all the pros and cons and then do a detailed analysis on your behalf and then make a decision rather than you making the decision and saying, these are the reasons why, is this okay? And that is a much better approach. Take the initiative, right? Be independent. That will maximize your utility in the working world and in the scenarios that we are facing today. All right. So the next question we have is Prataprathi. Please go ahead.
Hi everyone. Hi Peter. Is there any limit for the proposal that a single person can submit?
I think there's a limit on the total number by GSoC, I believe. I think they keep track of it based on your login ID. I think it's like 2 or 3, but double check with the Google guidelines. That would be helpful. 3, that's correct. One of the things that I would also suggest is that, especially with the hybrid projects, that you give the project a unique name, because what happens is that when you are in the Google portal, when you are ranking the projects, there seems to be a filter by name. And so therefore you can't add 2 things with the same name. So if you can, give your proposal a slightly unique name so that we can, if you're selected in the ranking, then we do stuff. And we talk about the, yes, I also want to talk about my role in the selection process related to ranking. What happens is that we get all these various proposals and things change over time. We will think about the direction of the code base and where you want to be, and what may have been a priority at the beginning of the evaluation period changes. So I work with the mentors to say, this is the long-term vision of where we want to go. This is the way that we're going to try to rank the proposals. Now, over time, we've realized that Google is not going to give us more than 8 slots. So the ranking is not as critical as it could be in other situations where people may find themselves having less slots available than the numbers that are submitted. One year we decided to submit 9, we ranked it, and one person got left out. We may attempt to do that, we may not. But I think the projects that we have seem to be okay. But if we get for example, if we get a lot of good hybrid ideas, we may want to try to see whether we could go for 9 or 10. But I think we're probably going to probably our best chances are with 8, and we may not submit more than 8, depending. But we may give it a try. But once again, it really does depend. All right, let's just see. Any other questions? Okay, let's see. Can you pin a message to make it visible for people who join later? We've had people pin posts on the Slack channel, and I'm sure that you're asking that question. So yeah, that has been done. All right. So let's just take a look at Karthik first. All right, Karthik Guram, I have contributed to Tallow admin and Tallow API so far, and would now like to work on the Tallow mobile project. However, I've noticed that there are few issues available. Will this affect my selection? No, we need to have a functioning mobile app. The API has changed. The fact that there are no issues doesn't mean that it's not important. Create issues and just get started. All right. That's the rationale behind it. The fact that there are fewer issues, it's not necessarily that there's a lower priority. It's just that we've been our limited resources, and the people that are asking questions have so far been skewed more to the web front end, but the mobile client really needs to be improved upon, because most people who are going to be using Talib are going to be using it on their phones. The part of the reason why we have been having more issues in admin is because it's just been easier for us to go and look and say, hey, this is what it was before, this is what it is now. But anything that we can do to get the mobile app back on track, create the issues, let's get going. All right. So I hope that also answers your question. Let's see what else.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So the next question is from Jai Panu. Can you please provide insights about our target audience? Okay. The target audience for the Tallow is, we want something that's going to be usable on any sort of virtual hosting system or in the cloud. But we want you to remember that this is going to be handled or used by non-profit organizations. Non-profit organizations, by definition, don't make a profit. They don't have a lot of money. And that is why they would want to use a product like Tallow, because it provides them with unique features and it's free. Because of that, they're going to want to have really good documentation, etc. They're going to want to have features in which they don't have to pay a third-party organization. They may not have a dedicated IT team to configure some sort of API to like a Firebase backend and have to pay that money, or they don't want to pay these other sorts of services. They want something as much as possible that is self-contained. In your proposal, if you're going to be talking about using some sort of API service, you're going to have to ask the question, who's going to pay? We've had situations in the past where people have said, let's use Firebase for the mobile app, and we will submit it to the account of the Palisadoes Foundation. It sounds really good, but if you have thousands and thousands of users, Palisadoes Foundation is going to have to be paying for the transaction costs of that. And which is why we want to make sure that everything is self-contained, which is why we want to make sure that everything is simple, That is why we want to make sure that the target user, keep in mind the target user, the target stakeholder, is going to be a non-technically savvy. A non-profit organization is going to be like your local temple, your local mosque, your local community center. It could be your local sports club. They may or may not have people that are technically savvy. Keep that in mind. We want to have something that is easy to install, very similar to like how you get WordPress set up. You just change the database username and password and it just works, right? And so try to think about those sorts of things as well. All right, so I think I've answered that question. Let me just go through some more. Right. Okay, so Rahul, I graduated in June 2024, not a student anymore. Am I eligible to apply? If the rules for the Google Summer of Code state that it's for people who are new to open source, and please go ahead and use that. We don't discriminate based on whether you're a graduate or not. We had somebody last year who is now a mentor, who is a working professional, and was a working professional when they were selected, and that is Mito. So you can probably talk with Mito. There's a discussion right now on Mito's idea that was worked on last year, which is the recurring events and the attendance dashboard. If you go to the Tallower repository, there's a discussion there that's related to that feature, and you can reach out to him directly and just see some of the challenges that are there as well. So I think that would be useful. Okay, let's just take a look here. So Bandam, Majumder, as our main branch is develop Postgres now, and the way we handle things in Tallow API's Postgres branch is a bit different than the develop branch. Will PARs of the develop branch be considered in that selection process? Because after selection, the work will be on develop Postgres, I guess. We need to get the demo site up and running, and I think I know where you're coming from with this. One of the issues that we're having right now is that you can't manage an organization in Tallow Admin and the develop branch. The events just don't work properly for some reason. We'd like to get that working, and we want to, as much as possible, do most of the development work on the Postgres branch. The only work that we'd like to do on develop is just to get the basic functionality working, because it used to work, and this one little feature is not working right. The reason why we have demo.tallow.io is so that people can take a look at what the application used to look like. They'll be able to see some of the bugs that were there, some of the ways in which it could be improved upon, and then they can use that in the develop Postgres branch in test.tallow.io, and they can use it for compare and contrast situations. I'll give you an example. The develop branch, the images in the post screens don't work properly. And if you ask the question, if you want to know whether it works or not, instead of you having to spin up the application in the develop branch and then look at it and then turn it down and then bring it up on the develop Postgres branch, why bother with that when you can see what it looks like on the demo site, and then you can see what it looks like on the Postgres side, on the test site. And this is why we just want to get the basic functionality for the demo site up and running so that people can compare and contrast. And that is really going to be important. All right, so let's just move on. The higher number of GSoC priority label issues, the greater the chances of selection. Would you like to give more details on this? We don't take the GSoC priority label ideas into consideration. I don't think that has ever really been discussed. The reason why we have those labels is because we know that if those issues are not completed, then the chances of the GSoC projects being successful are lower, which is part of the reason why We have labeled most of the non-testing ideas as being sort of like a GSoC priority. It's more from that perspective. The tests are going to be important. And if you're a newcomer to the whole process, and even if you're not, we really suggest that you take a look at at the testing regime. The if the application used to be extremely buggy, and we went through and we started to increase the testing to make sure that it's less and less buggy. The usage that we're seeing with Postgres is getting better. We want the application to work. If we now have a demo site, and we can't have a demo site that doesn't function, and the best way to make sure that the demo site functions is make sure that the testing is valid and that the testing is useful and usable. It's not everything is adding new features. We need to have usable code. It needs to be stable. And like I said before, because we're a non-profit organization, because we are an open source project, stable code means less people on Slack asking questions as to why it doesn't work. And so we need to have those testing ideas covered as well. And that's the reason why they were created.
Thank you.
All right, so let's just see any more questions. All right, so Jai Panu, what would happen in a case where a proposal may introduce very good but major breaking change, alteration of code at that scale, along with database changing, would be nearly equivalent to building from scratch? We just can't use the front end. Since we already have broken code due to DB change, will that idea be rejected, although it is good? We need to have a functioning app, period. Any solution that we have, we cannot have a broken app going into GSoC and we come out with a broken app at the end of it. That's not an option. We have to have test.tallow.io always functioning. We have to have test.tallow.io needs to be functioning. And if it means that we can make sure that we have a functioning code base and have something that is usable, we cannot have another year in which we don't have an MVP. We have something that looks like an alpha product right now. By the end of the year, we need to have the test.tallow.io site fully functioning and working. It needs to be testable, it needs to be usable, and we need to start having the first organizations actually using it. We have to prove ourselves. We are looking for various types of funding for not just Google, and these sites are going to be instrumental in us being able to improve the development of all the apps that we have, and functionality is really going to be important for us. All right, next question. Does anybody else have any questions? I just want to make sure before we end. Doesn't look that way. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Did anybody get a chance to record this conversation?
Yes, I have actually recorded the conversation. I'll send it to you.
Yes, please share the document with me. All right, so Gopi Kishan. I built a project during a hackathon that uses its own API to send SMS notifications. Would it make sense to add that to my GSoC proposal? Would that strengthen my proposal? Right. If you can use the project as a backgrounder, that would be useful. Don't make it the sole methodology. The code base that we have has its own unique challenges and own unique implementations. So therefore, please take that into consideration. Okay, so we've got Adil. Ahmed, whom should we contact for hybrid proposals to discuss and refine? Send an email to mentors@palisadoes.org. I think Tyrone and Shanika were on the call, or should maybe still be on the call, and those are the people that you should be contacting. Those mentors are the ones that you should be talking to. Please remember that in some cases, the mentors may not be in your time zone. Jamaica is, I think, maybe like 12, 12 to 11 to 12 hours time difference. So that could be a challenge for you. Vanshika, please go ahead.
Yes, so my question is a little bit out of context from this topic of GSoC. So I want to ask that in the logo of Palisadoes, we can see three colors. So what does that symbolize? Is there any reason?
Uh, please repeat. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, actually, my question is that we can see the symbol of Palisadoes. We have three colors, black, green, and yellow. Does that symbolize anything?
Oh yeah, the colors for Palisadoes, those colors are the Jamaican flag. And when we first started the the project, we wanted something that would be usable. The actual logo is very simple to create, just using your keyboard. We wanted something that was very easy, and so that's the rationale behind it. And we went in with the Taloa admin and the Taloa mobile app using these colors. And so people just naturally thought that they would use something with these colors. We didn't mandate it. We had some stuff in Taloa that talked about the colors originally. But what we realized very quickly was that the green color that was used dominated the user interface, and it started to become very, very unattractive because of this great use of this very strong green. And over time, we realized that it was going to be unusable for people who are colorblind because we're using a very strong green and a very strong red. And when you take screenshots of those web pages and upload them to colorblind evaluation sites, the color red and the color green in those sites, there was no discernible difference, which is why we've gone with the new Figma designs using icons in addition to colors, so that people have no misconceptions whether they're colorblind or not. It's not such a big issue amongst women, but in terms of men, I think 10% of the male population is colorblind. And so therefore, we have 24 people on the call. Maybe at least one of us is colorblind right now. And so we wanted to make sure that that is an important factor. When we came up with a new design, we took a look at the Gmail interface, and we decided to follow that, which is why it has these light blues and light reds, some gray colorations, because Google has spent the time to do all the colorblind testing, etc. And so we decided that we would use that as the basis for the new Figma designs that you'll see. Similarly, if we're going to be going with like a dark mode for the apps, we want to make sure that the apps also follow something similar to Gmail because they've already done the research. There are issues in which we have been going through systematically and revamping the CSS for the apps so that we move away from, I think we're using Bootstrap, and we're moving away from the standard app.css file for that and creating our own so that we can easily get to a place where we have CSS that is more usable and more easily maintainable. One of the issues that we've had with just using the modifications to the default colors and somebody early on changed the hex code for brown to green. And because of that, when you're looking at at the code, you're seeing all of these references to brown. Brown gets used in inappropriate ways. If you change brown to some other color, all sorts of things start to change. Some people use that CSS value, some people use other ones. Part of the reason that when we went through the CSS modifications, we are using variable names that are very specific to the component and not overall. So if you take a look at the updated CSS files that we're trying to use, I think it's called app-fixed dot something, you will see these changes. So please take that into consideration. So it's a very, very long explanation about the colors for the logo, but indirectly it had a very major impact on the design of the application and our recognition that it was a mistake, and so therefore we've come back, right?
Yes, I think that's what makes Palisadoes different from other orgs, that we really think about the user.
Okay, thank you. Let's just see if there are any other questions. Doesn't seem as if there are any others. Okay, Karthik Karam, I believe using Tailwind CSS is a better approach compared to using app.css. If you feel that way, consider making a mention of that in your proposal. But at the moment, we would like to stick with what we have. We're trying to consolidate things at the moment so that we can have a usable product. We prefer not to make major changes at this time. I want to make sure that if we're doing it, we have a single person dealing with it and getting us to where we need to be. So we have had discussions in the mentor groups as to whether we could use something like Tailwind or whether we should use the current methodology. We decided to use the current Bootstrap one because we just thought it'd be simpler. But if you think there are better ways of it, what we don't want is to be using competing methodologies and then creating more confusion, creating more technical debt that we have to work around. The whole idea behind what we're trying to do is to prevent technical debt. Okay.
Or shall I implement and shall I put it in my PR? Is a proposal.
Yes, you can. And I think somebody mentioned, I think there's one of these PRs in which I think Tailwind was mentioned.
Nishant.
Yeah, you're going to have to talk with the person reviewing it to see whether it is appropriate or not. There's some certain aspects of it that may make sense, but just want to make sure that if we're doing it, that we are not introducing yet more things to break, more things to clean up after the fact. It's better for us to stick with cleaning up as much of the technical debt as we can now, and then think about doing rewrites later on, or if we're going to be doing rewrites, it has to be done by a single person so that we don't have to be cross-communicating with people and taking all of these various things into account. All right, next question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Let's just see let me just go through these questions and see if there's anything more. Right, there's nothing more. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I think this has been a very useful opportunity to discuss things with all of you. Good luck in your interactions. Please make sure that you keep in contact with the mentors through the various methodologies that we mentioned. And let's try and see how we can get a better product to get us to where we want to be. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Goodbye. Oh, hold on. Hold on. We have another question. Can we introduce third-party solutions with project ideas?
I think the answer to that is
Yeah,
it depends.
go ahead, Dominic.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is it depends on what the third party solution is. Is it a closed source solution? Is it an open source solution? Does it work well with Taloa? Does it actually, is it modular? Is it maintainable? There's a lot of questions that you can pile up on this. To it's not easily answerable. It depends a lot on the context.
Right. So, for example, we're going to be talking about using plugins for Talo Admin. And one of the plugins is interactions with third-party providers. So therefore, you can't do that without taking that into consideration. So it's appropriate in that response. But sometimes it is inappropriate. So just keep that in mind, just like Dominic said. If it's open source, all right, use your discretion in coming up with the third-party solutions. Keep that in mind. Keep everything that we've spoken about in mind. Talk to the mentors to get feedback about the proposal or the idea that you have, and then from there use that for guidance to get to where you want to be. Any additional questions? All right, no. Thank you very much, everybody. It doesn't seem as if we have any more questions, and we will be looking forward to you contacting us over Slack, email, and all the various other mediums that you have mentioned. Good luck in 2025, and thank you for considering the Palisadoes Foundation as part of your GSoC project. Okay, goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.